I've been making practical organization and cleaning videos for almost a decade, and here are my 10 best game-changing tips to a cleaner, tidier home. First thing I want to teach you is what I call my FLAT rule, and it is an acronym that I have developed especially for when you need to tidy your home and it's feeling a little overwhelming. So think about those days, maybe you were home all day with the kids, they were playing, they were doing a lot, you cooked a dinner, it was kind of a crazy bedtime, you come downstairs and it looks like a tornado has gone off. You look at that space, you feel overwhelmed. That is when you use the FLAT acronym. And the FLAT acronym stands for flat surfaces, localize, avoid, and tackle in 5. So let me explain what I mean. The idea here is the first thing you're going to do is go through your space and focus on the flat surfaces first. You're not going to get hung up on cleaning the space. You're not going to get hung up on like wiping down counters or sweeping up the mess. You're just focusing on clearing off the flat surfaces. So say you're in the kitchen, you're going to take dirty dishes and put them in the sink, but you're not washing the dishes. Maybe if you're walking through the living room and your kid has some dirty socks on the floor, you're going to put them in the laundry hamper, but you're not switching the laundry. The idea is to constantly remind yourself that you are just focusing on those flat surfaces, so countertops, floors, and you're removing excess from the flat surfaces that don't need to be there. L stands for localize. So this means you are going to move one room at a time. You are going to work on all the flat surfaces in the kitchen before you move on to the dining room. And you're going to do the dining room before you move into the living room. This is going to help you focus in on one area so that you're not just sort of like wandering around. It can be really easy as you're cleaning, like one cleaning thing can lead to another cleaning thing, can lead to another cleaning thing. You can end up in this waterfall and really never get done what you want to get done. So localize on just one area and do that room before you move on to the next room. Something I like to think of when I'm doing L for localize is that I'm sort of like sweeping stuff. So say I'm in the kitchen, I'm putting dishes in the sink, right? I'm not washing them, but I'm putting them in the sink. And then I have like a pile of stuff that goes into my kids' playroom. Instead of going all the way to the kids' playroom, I'm gonna sort of just sweep it towards the playroom. So whatever like exit from my kitchen is closest to the playroom, I'm gonna sort of sweep it there. This is going to help me not end up in the playroom and then get distracted in the playroom. I'm just sort of sweeping stuff towards the areas that they need to go. And then when I move to the playroom, I will take that pile with me. And that moves me on to the A of flat, and that means avoid distractions. So this is sort of my point, that we're sweeping the playroom stuff towards the playroom, but I'm not going into the playroom and then getting distracted by cleaning the playroom. You don't want to get distracted by side quests as you are doing the flat rule. Maybe you're picking stuff up off the dining room table and you notice that like there's a spill there. This is not when you're tending to it right now. Avoid that distraction. Right now you're just focusing on picking up things on the flat surfaces. And then the last one is take 5. And the idea here is that you're setting a 5-minute timer per space. So give yourself 5 minutes in the kitchen to clear the flat surfaces, 5 minutes in the dining room to clear the flat surfaces. The reason this works is our brain really likes start and end times. It makes it a lot easier for us, especially in these instances when the space can feel really overwhelming and we don't know where to start. Sometimes when we don't know where to start and it feels really overwhelming, we just default to not starting at all. But if we give ourselves a start and an end time, we say, okay, we're gonna do 5 minutes. We're gonna clear off flat surfaces for 5 minutes in the kitchen and then 5 minutes in the living room. It gives your brain this really concrete time marker. I only got to do 5 minutes and then that's when I'm ending, and it can help you sort of move on to the next task. So when you face a space that it feels really overwhelming and you don't know where to start, remember flat and work through the acronym flat surfaces, localize, avoid distractions, take 5. I want to quickly shout out that I do have a ebook called Cleaner in 30 Days, and it's basically a 30-day challenge. There's like mantras in there, there's some daily routines that you follow, and essentially what it does is you start on day 1, you follow it for 30 days, and just teaches you how to habitually become a cleaner person. So I will put a link to that ebook in the description box down below. Number 2 is less is more. The other day I was getting interviewed for a podcast about organization and like decluttering, and the question was, if somebody's really overwhelmed with the space and they don't know where to start, or you could only give them like one tip with their overwhelmed space, what would it be? And my response is, you probably have too much stuff in that space. At the end of the day, the less stuff you have to manage, the less time it's going to take to manage it, the easier it's going to be. I mean, all of that. It sort of seems like a duh statement, but if you have a space that continually feels like it's impossible to manage, continually is getting messy, the answer is you probably have too much stuff in that space. And I always say you can't organize clutter. So you need to maybe start with decluttering the space first, or at least paring back how much is in that space to make it easier to manage and to make it so it's not so overwhelming. Okay, going off the idea of less and more, my next tip is the fill the bag rule. I like to use this once a month, sometimes even once a week. And the idea is that you're going to take a bag, you're going to go through the space, and you're going to fill the bag. And there are 3 things that you could fill this bag with. You can fill it with stuff that belongs somewhere else, which you are going to fill the bag with stuff that belongs somewhere else, and then you're going to walk through your house quickly putting that stuff away. 2, trash, just stuff that doesn't need to be in here, stuff that you can get out of your house, throw it out. Or number 3 would be donate. So you're filling your bag with a bunch of stuff that can be donated. You're then going to take your bag and you're going to put it in your car so you can drop it off at your donation center. Next up, what I want you to do is identify what your non-negotiables are. So these are certain things that are non-negotiable that you do every single day. If you watch my videos for any period of time, you know that one of my actual very first non-negotiable was my kitchen sink rule. And this was a rule that I created for myself, which said I'm never going to go to bed with my kitchen sink when it is dirty. This was back when I was somebody who was still completely disorganized, never felt like I could get my house tidy. I really just thought that the idea of having a tidy, organized home was a total pipe dream. And it was making me crazy. I hated coming down in the morning to a messy kitchen and just a messy house in general. And so I sort of started my first non-negotiable. I said, you know what, no matter how tired you are, no matter how messy the rest of the house is, every night you're not going to bed until your kitchen sink is tidy and it's clean. And so it would force me to do the dishes and put the dishes away and wipe down the kitchen sink. And this became a non-negotiable that I did every single night. What happens with non-negotiables is that they typically will ripple into other good cleaning habits to keep your home tidy. But define what a few of your non-negotiables are. Some others may be like doing a 10-minute tidy before you leave for work in the morning. For me, a big one that I do is a 15-minute cleanup before I go to bed. I walk through the house and I just tend to some stuff that needs to be tended to. Maybe it is that you switch your laundry every single morning when you wake. Maybe it's you put a load of laundry away every night before you go to bed. Maybe that it's you always clear off your bathroom counter after you get ready in the morning. Whatever it is, define some non-negotiables in your life that you sort of like live and die by. And if you are very new in this journey, I would say start with one. For me, it was the kitchen sink. I started with the kitchen sink rule. Now I have many that sort of run my life throughout the day. And I'm like, I gotta do this. This is non-negotiable. It's something I have to do today and I have to get done. Because once you've done one, like I said, they end up rippling into more and it becomes easier to have more and more. But define what your non-negotiable or non-negotiables are. All right, next tip is to focus on flat surfaces. So my very first tip in this video was obviously my acronym of FLAT. And the first one of that is flat surfaces. But one practical tip that I always use just in general when I am trying to keep my home tidy is to focus on that first F of the FLAT acronym, which is flat surfaces. Because at the end of the day, if a space feels cluttered or feels overwhelming or you don't know where to start, flat surfaces are almost always the answer and the place that you want to start. You want to get into the habit daily, not even daily, just throughout your day, habitually thinking about clearing off your flat surfaces. The more you do it, the more you'll habitually just like realize that there's something on a flat surface and like constantly be clearing the flat surfaces off. And the reason that I think clearing flat surfaces is so important is for a couple of reasons. One, studies have proven that when we look at a space and that space is cluttered, it tends to lead to procrastination. It tends to lead to other bad habits, everything from like overeating to not sleeping as well. It's been proven that cluttered spaces increase our cortisol levels. So just simply by focusing on flat surfaces and removing some of the excess from those surfaces can instantly make the room feel more manageable. It can instantly boost your endorphins, make you feel more motivated, make you feel like you can keep going and you can continue to tackle the space. And the other reason that I find flat surfaces, honestly, one of the keys to keeping a home more tidy is because clutter attracts clutter. If you have a countertop that has some clutter on it and then you add some more clutter to it, you're not really gonna notice because it's just gonna be like, there's some more clutter. It just sort of like blends in. It's just more clutter. As opposed to if you have a flat surface that you, in general, do a pretty good job of keeping clear and then you add a little bit of clutter on top of it, not only is it gonna sort of stick out like a sore thumb, but it's just a little bit of clutter. So that's gonna feel a lot more manageable. As opposed to if you've let your clutter accumulate, you're gonna look at a pile and it's gonna feel totally unmanageable and you're not even gonna know where to start, and so you probably won't start. When in doubt, use a timer. Like I said earlier, our brain loves concrete time markers. It is why we love New Year's resolutions because, you know, January 1st is the beginning of a new year. We love starting diets or new goals on a Monday. We like concrete time markers because it allows us to sort of like have these start and stop times, and it allows us to sort of say, like, that was in the past, like that was last year, that was last week, and going forward this week, you know, now I'm going to be able to do A, B, and C. So whenever you're overwhelmed, even with any task, but it works really great with organization and cleaning, is to give yourself those concrete time markers. So I always use timers all of the time just to sort of get myself going with that. So you need to clean a space, you need to organize a closet, you need to do whatever sort of task it is that you need to do, set a timer. It's going to give yourself that end time so you know, okay, I only have to clean until the timer goes off. Also, if you're like me, I'm constantly sort of like overwhelmed by how much I have to do. And so seeing one more thing that then needs to get done, in my mind, almost subconsciously, I'm like, just don't have time, right? I almost like out of sight, out of mind, and I just like sort of push it back because I'm like, I can't get to that right now. But by setting timers, whether you're setting a 3-minute timer, a 5-minute timer, a 10-minute timer, it can literally be a 1-minute timer. Get whatever you can get done in that timer block, because one, setting a timer allows your brain to say, okay, yeah, I've got 3 minutes. Like I can give this 3 minutes, or I can give it 5 minutes. It also gives you an end time. Even if you don't completely finish the task, you are still 5 minutes better than you were 5 minutes before. One little mantra that has totally changed my life when it comes to care tasks for my home is you're never gonna feel like it. And I use this all the time because there are so many things that we need to do and tend to in our home that are easy to sort of put off. Like I'll take out the trash later, I'll break down that box tomorrow. You know, there's constant care tasks for our home throughout the day. Everything we're doing is like another task that we need to sort of like care to in our home. So it's easy to kind of push them all down the road and say, I'll do it later. I'll put the laundry away tomorrow morning. You know, I'll do the dishes when I get home from work. Whatever it is, it's really easy for us to push these off. And sometimes for the sake of time, maybe we have to. But I typically will say to myself, when I find myself saying, I'll do that later, which typically the I'll do that later is sort of a subconscious thought, I remind myself, I'm never gonna feel like it. If I don't feel like taking out the trash right now, I'm not gonna feel like taking out the trash when I get home from work. If I don't feel like putting my laundry away right now, I'm not gonna wanna do it in the morning. You don't feel like doing it now, you're never gonna feel like it, so you might as well just get it done now. You've heard me say before, this idea of do something today that tomorrow you will thank you for. It's sort of that same idea. Like if I do it now, then tomorrow me doesn't have to worry about it. And tomorrow me's not gonna wanna do it anyways, so I might as well just take care of it right now. Next up is to give everything a home. I feel like this is a really cliche sort of organizing tip that people spew over and over again, but the truth is things need places that they belong. Otherwise, they're never gonna go back to where they go. They're gonna end up sitting out on counters. They're going to end up cluttering up spaces because they don't have a place that they belong. If there's something that is sitting out, it is either because 1, it doesn't belong there, 2, you need to tend to it and get rid of it, or 3, it doesn't have a home. Give things homes where you use them, not necessarily where you think it's going to look pretty for them to be stored, because it's going to make it 1,000 times more likely that then you are going to get them back to where they go. Giving everything a home does not mean that it needs to be Pinterest perfect. You don't have to have all matching bins. You don't have to be fully labeled with color-coded whatever. You know what I mean? The picture perfect whatever. It doesn't need to be that. It can be that, and that can be something you aspire to, but you can also be going to Goodwill and using like baskets that you got at the Dollar Tree and like handwriting, you know, little labels on a what? I don't know, Callie, where were you going with that? The point is that you are giving everything that you own in your home a home. And going off of giving everything a home, and sort of like I said, it does not need to be picture perfect. Understand that with organization and cleaning in your home, perfection is never the purpose or the ultimate goal. Perfection is impossible if you are actively living in your home. If you're living in your home and you're like cooking and hosting your friends and like raising children possibly and maybe indulging in hobbies and whatever, your home is not going to be perfection all of the time because you live there. So remember that perfection and this Pinterest perfect look is not the ultimate goal. The goal is a home that you can easily manage, systems that you can follow that keep your house running smoothly. I always like to give the example of my children's playroom. This is certainly not a picture perfect playroom. It's not something that you're probably going to see on the walls of Pinterest or like when you're scrolling on your Instagram feed, but like it does not matter how much of a tornado has gone through that playroom on like maybe a long weekend when it rained and was cold all weekend and my kids just played in there like 24/7. I can get that room back to baseline clean in usually about 10 minutes because of the way that I have it set up. I have clear bins so it is easy for myself and for my children to see what is in the bins. I have the bins and the shelves that the bins belong on labeled, so it's really easy for those things to go back. I have removed all of the excess from this playroom, so we don't have the little pieces that aren't really getting played with, that are just pouring out, that are like take forever to pick up, right? Going back to the idea of less is more. We have focused on just the toys that my kids actively play with and play with independently for long periods of time. Everything in the playroom has a home where it belongs. And so, no, it's not picture perfect. It's not perfection. Nobody's gonna walk in and be like, this is the most beautiful playroom I've ever seen, but it is easy to manage and easy to maintain. And then my final tip is to know that you need to revisit your systems and your organizational structures often, especially as you go through different seasons of life, or even just through actual seasons. In case you don't know, I am part of a podcast called Just for Moms, but we were recently talking about organization in the home, just sort of like chatting about it. And one of the hosts, Charlotte, brought up how she's been exercising a lot more lately, but it's sort of silly because all of her exercise stuff that she uses is like way up on this high shelf, and she has to like climb up on this step stool to get it, because in a season of life that she was maybe in before, she was not exercising as much. And so having her workout stuff like way out of reach totally makes sense. But now that she is exercising more, you want to move this stuff, and she needs to like bring it down and put it at eye level and put it somewhere that she can easily access it because she's using it every single day. So that's an example of revisiting an organizational structure as you go through different seasons of life. It may be swapping out your winter boots to put them more right at eye level when it's winter, as opposed to putting your like summer flip-flops there. For me, a lot of it is going through different seasons of life with my children. So my playroom has changed drastically as I went from 1 and 2 children to 3 to 4 children. I've adjusted it in a lot of ways to make it work for multiple ages in the space, where before it was maybe more organized for just my son and myself playing in it together. If a system isn't working, if an organizational structure isn't working, it doesn't mean that you failed, doesn't mean that you suck at organizing and you just can't do it. It just means your house has either sort of outgrown it or has changed, or it no longer needs a structure like that. So know that your organizational structures, as you create them, you're going to need to constantly revisit them and adjust them for whatever season of life you are in. All right, my friends, that does it. The 10 best, in my opinion, I think, cleaning/organization sort of tips that I use on a daily basis. If you sort of adopt these overall in your day-to-day life, these are the ones that I think have made the biggest impact for me, have really changed my life the most when it comes to organizing and keeping my home tidy. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you all in my next video.